Welcome to this High Time for High Tech webinar, giving you some great information about how technology is helping to transform our dental practices and our world, and helping to prepare you as a dental professional to really have great success in this new digital world. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about what green dentistry is and giving you a little bit of background about it, and then we're going to go into some great detail about high technology investments and opportunities that are available within dentistry now and in the future. So what is green dentistry? It is a number of things, but before we dive deeper into that definition, if you really want to think about what green dentistry is, it's really in two words: digital everything. So green dentistry, here at the Eco-Dentistry Association, we have defined green dentistry as that which reduces waste and pollution, saves energy, water, and money, incorporates high technology, and integrates a wellness approach. So you can see that the high-tech dental practice of the present and the high-tech dental practice of the future is really also the green dental practice. Patient expectations of modern dental offices are different than they were just even a few years ago. So for dentists, many of us are doing our work in a way that has worked for us in the past, and maybe we've got technologies that were 5, 10, or even 20 years old. But now we have patients who are part of a very rapidly changing environment where technology goes through cycles every 18 months to 2 years. And the news is that they're actually expecting their dentists to stay up on technology. So these are opportunities that are presented to our dental professionals to really connect with this growing market of patients that expects their dentist to be on the leading edge of technology. And when we are on the leading edge of technology and using state-of-the-art equipment and materials and techniques, and we attend continuing education courses like this one and other hands-on techniques, we can show our clients and our patients that we're really on the leading edge of what dentistry has to offer. Patients expect us to have great attention to detail, and they also expect us to be environmentally responsible. We're going to talk a little bit more later on in this webinar about how those patients, the wellness lifestyle patients, are connecting environmental stewardship with their purchasing decisions. And for example, this market of patients spent more than $200 billion, and that's billion dollars in 2010 on products and services which matched their values of environmental stewardship and technology. So we've got to be embracing those opportunities that are presented. And in doing so, it helps us to continue to build relationships that are really based on trust, caring, and compassion. Because really, in the end of the day, dentistry is a relationship business, and technology can really play an important part in helping us to achieve greater connectivity between our dental offices and the patients that we serve. So what is the impact environmentally of dental practices? In the U.S. alone, and these are aggregate figures that we've been able to achieve and what we've been able to ascertain, that the actual impact of dentistry is very significant from an environmental standpoint. So I'm going to talk to you about a few of those impacts, and then we're going to also talk about some opportunities to have an impact on changing those. So conventional X-ray systems are a gigantic issue in terms of their environmental footprint. The statistics now are that still roughly 1/2 of U.S. dental practitioners are still using conventional X-ray systems. And conventional X-ray systems essentially require dental offices to have a mini photographic developing spot And generally, these are in closets or back rooms that are often not well ventilated, but they do generate a substantial amount of waste material as a result. One aspect of that is the toxic X-ray fixer, so the development chemicals that are used in order to bring conventional images into a readable format. 28 million liters of toxic X-ray development fixer are generated by U.S. dental practices every year. And in many communities, this waste product is actually dumped straight down the drain, which is then polluting our local wastewater treatment facilities as well as our groundwater systems. In addition, conventional X-ray systems require the use of lead foils, and U.S. dental offices generate 4.8 million such lead foils every year just by taking X-rays. When we use digital imaging, and we're going to talk a lot about digital imaging in this presentation, we eliminate all of that toxic X-ray development fixer, and we eliminate all of those lead foils. And along with it, what we eliminate is a lot of headache for dentists. So instead of having to have a hazardous waste permit that allows the safe disposal of the X-ray fixer and lead foils, dental offices that are digital avoid that whole morass. And instead of having your dental assistant out of the operatory for 10 to 15 minutes of every clinical hour, that assistant can stay chairside and help to support the treatment recommendations of the dentist. Next, amalgam waste. So again, about 50% of U.S. dental offices self-identify as mercury-free offices, which they mean is that they do not any longer place amalgam fillings. However, there is an installed base of several hundred million amalgam fillings among the U.S. population. When these fillings degrade or break down, or there's otherwise tooth decay, or that tooth needs to be restored again, the old amalgam needs to be removed. So whether you're an office that is just putting amalgam in or taking it out, the most important step that you can take to be environmentally sound is to have a separator. Right now, dental offices are the largest contributor of mercury-containing waste to our nation's local wastewater treatment facilities. And this is according to the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. So infection control and sterilization. So obviously we all have to do our part in terms of protecting both patients and our practitioners from any cross-contamination. Mission critical. And we do not need to be covering every single surface within the dental office with plastic, and including ourselves. So right now, infection control and sterilization is responsible for the creation of 680 million infection control barriers, all plastic, single-use disposables, that end up in our landfills, and 1.7 billion instrument and sterilization pouches. There are methods available through hospital-grade sterilization that are being used that can help to change this, this impact of infection control and sterilization. But right now in dentistry, this is what we have to deal with. Dental vacuum systems. So our systems which create the suction that allow us to appropriately remove water and other particulates from a patient's mouth. Dental vacuum systems in general need water in order to create the suction. We're going to talk a little bit later about some of the waterless options that are available, but right now there's very small market penetration for those systems, and dental vacuum systems alone are responsible for the use of, and really waste of, 9 billion gallons of what would otherwise be drinkable water. So this is an image that looks like what many typical U.S. dental offices look like today. A really nice lady in front of an entire wall of charts, pulling paper charts before each appointment, and then having to file the doctor's notes or the front office notes in that same file, and things around the operatory covered in plastic. This, however, is the other side of all of that single-use disposable plastic. What you are looking at is a 10-foot by 10-foot cube that contains the plastic waste from a single doctor to hygienist office for only 17 clinical days, so for 1 clinical month. And this is what happens to all of our single-use disposables. They have to go somewhere. And when you look at it in this form, it starts to really draw on you that, hey, maybe there's a better way. Here's what happens to that single-use disposable. What we're looking at now is something called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And there are actually multiple different what are called garbage patches that are floating within the planet's oceans, and they're being drawn by the currents in the ocean. And all of the trash that we don't appropriately either recycle or send to the landfill ends up in our water. And, you know, people leave a shovel at the beach or a cigarette butt, or they don't properly recycle or dispose of a toothbrush that has outlived its useful life. This is what's happening in our oceans. And the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a floating mass of trash that is reputed to be the size of the great state of Texas, more than 260 million square miles. Gigantic. A friend of ours came across the Pacific Garbage Patch while on a sailing venture and scooped up a jar of it, and inside that was a yellow plastic toothbrush. We can do better. The water crisis. Imagine practicing modern dentistry without reliable access to clean water. It just wouldn't be possible. But we have a water crisis just by virtue of the fact that of the 100% of water that is existing on our planet today, only 1% of that water is fresh water, which is usable to us as humans. 97% of it is salt water, and 2% of it at present is ice. So the water crisis has, we have an inherent scarcity. What we're also doing is polluting at an alarming rate the existing water supplies that we have. So this is helping to fuel a food crisis, because without reliable access to clean water, we're not able to grow crops. And in turn, it's also fueling a health crisis, because the bugs and insects and other pests are able to thrive in these environments in ways that we humans simply are not. So to put this water crisis in perspective for you, just think about, we all are advising our patients to brush their teeth 2 times a day, at least 2 minutes a time. But when we do that and we leave the water running, we're wasting as much as 27 billion glasses of water every year just by doing that. And this impacts all of us. We have Americans using more water taking a 5-minute shower than a typical person in a developing country would use in an entire day. And more people in the world own a cell phone than have access to a toilet. This has a disproportionate impact on women who spend thousands of hours every year collecting and carrying water for themselves and their families. So the problem with plastic, what we're looking at here, is actually an image of an albatross bird that has died because what it did is mistake our human trash for food. And you can see even right there a picture of a yellow plastic toothbrush beside the bird. And plastic is comes from petroleum, which of course is a fossil fuel, which is an increasingly scarce supply. And creating plastic that is single-use plastics uses a tremendous amount of what we call embodied energy, which is looking really at the life cycle of a product from its raw material state through constructing it, manufacturing it, distributing it, and paying for the transportation to get it to your office, and then the whole waste stream on the back end, making sure it's either recycled or transporting it to a landfill where then it has to be stored. This plastic doesn't break down in terms of going away. What it breaks down into are dangerous chemical compounds that get smaller and smaller and end up being absorbed by us and by wildlife. So what can we really do about this? Well, high-tech dentistry is really the answer, and it's also eco-friendly dentistry. And I've got some really good news for you. Many of you out there that are listening to this are actually greener than you might think. If you are already using digital imaging and you're already using digital software to run your practices, you may actually be greener than you think you are. There is a one-to-one correlation between the high-tech choice and the environmentally friendly choice. And I'm going to give you some examples of that in a couple of minutes. And this kind of an approach of really thinking about and recontextualizing high-tech dentistry as eco-friendly dentistry is the kind of approach which is really natural for many of those in the younger generation that are just graduating from dental school or are starting their practices, and for forward-thinking dentists wherever they are in their career that are looking to stay abreast and on top of the latest technological developments. Because when we stay on top of technology and we're using state-of-the-art equipment, what we're communicating to our patients, even unwittingly, is that by using state-of-the-art equipment, that our practices are practicing state-of-the-art dentistry. And it might surprise you to realize that patients really do notice that, but they do. So if what they're greeted by is a wall of faded charts from 40 years ago as opposed to a slick computer screen, these patients are making determinations about the quality of your dentistry, whether or not it's true and whether or not you want them to. So by being a high-tech office, you have the opportunity not only to reach this market of consumers, the wellness-based consumers we're going to talk a little bit more about, but also to really improve the value of your practice and to ensure that you're using your staff time and resources most efficiently. This is an image of a dental office from one of our Eco-Dentistry Association members up in Seattle, Dr. Beffa and Beffa Dental, and you see there's a lot of technology here that's being utilized. Digital imaging and computer screens are being utilized. They also use high-tech oral cancer screening. And what they're doing is that you might not think of as a high-tech thought, but they're also using natural light in their operatories. So during high light times of the day, they might not need to use the overhead lights in the operatory, and instead they can just use their task lighting, their operatory lights, or even some of the doctors are using their loops that have LED lights on them. And you'll also notice Beffa Dental has eliminated the plastic on their chairs. They're using a reusable cloth headrest cover as well as a reusable cloth patient bib. This is a great way to reduce your plastic use, and it can also be a good way to reflect your practice personality, as headrest covers and patient bibs don't require FDA approval, and you can have some made to your specifications and consistent with your practice branding. Technology can help us in so many different ways in our practices. It can help us improve the bottom line by helping us eliminate wasted energy and water, and it helps us to have opportunities to connect with wellness-based patients that we're going to talk about. And it also gives dentists the opportunity to really do what's right for our communities. When you think about it, when you're practicing dentistry, you're not practicing it off somewhere by yourself. You're practicing it right here in a community where people that you know live and work. And, you're more likely to see your patients at your local grocery store or soccer game or something like that. And technology can really help to keep you connected to them and help to keep your practice bottom line in good shape. So some specifics about saving energy and water. So a dry vacuum system, we're going to go into a specific in just a moment, but a dry vacuum system can save between 350 and 500 gallons of water every single day. And if you want to get a pretty staggering statistic, this amount of water just used for our vacuum systems for a single office can use as much as 28,000 gallons of water every year, and that's the equivalent of filling up a large-size swimming pool 3 times just to do what we need to do to create a vacuum system to suck out particulates and other things from our patient's mouth. Something we can do something about. Waterless hand sanitizer might seem low-tech, but actually sanitizers that have 60% alcohol in them are approved by the CDC for us to use in dentistry so long as the hands are not visibly soiled. So, for example, when you remove them from gloves and you need to leave your operatory and go and do an exam in another operatory, great time to use waterless hand sanitizer. Motion sensors. A little high-tech invention called motion sensors. Probably don't want to use them in your operatories, but a great place to use them in your private office, doctors, or in your staff room, in your break room, or your storage areas. Great high-tech investment. And then turn off your equipment at night. It might seem low-tech, but really everything that has an on-off switch should be turned off at night, and you're going to save energy and money by doing that. LED operatory lights. Just in the last couple of years, several manufacturers, Dental Ease, Pelton and Crane, have come out with LED operatory lights that we're going to talk about in depth. So reducing waste and pollution in the dental office. There are opportunities that are present in every aspect of the practice, from the clinical areas such as sterilization, which you're looking at right now, to the general office area, to your waiting lounge, to every aspect of your practice. So there are, and these waste reducing and pollution prevention opportunities can result in cost savings to the practice and revenue boosts. And they also help dentists to really do their part as good corporate citizens here in our local communities. So what you're looking at now is a sterilization area in a high-tech dental office. They're using all steam sterilization, and you might not even notice this, but the lighting that is in the overhead lights is actually energy efficient CFLs, and they are only turned on part of the way. And you can see that the sterilization area has made excellent use of task lighting under the counters. This is a great way to reduce our energy use as well as to save the practice some money. So what are some of the benefits of LED technologies? And you can use LED technologies not only in operatory lights, but in overhead lights. They're now being made available, and also things that are simple and you might not think of as using energy, but things like exit signs in your office. Those can all be LED. So different benefits from LED technology. Lower energy consumption, number one. Number two, the bulbs last a lot longer, almost 35 times as long, depending on the technologies. And when you use less energy and you don't have to replace a bulb as often, a halogen bulb, for example, in an operatory light, you're going to save money. So with LED operatory lighting, there's another great advantage, which is that halogens actually throw off a lot of heat. And I know many of your operatories are small spaces that, you put 2 bodies with your assistant and a dentist, and then you add a 3rd body in your patient. It can get quite warm in there, but LED operatory lights can help the temperature in the dental operatory stay lower, and also can prevent premature curing of composite resin materials, which are often very heat sensitive. In addition, LED operatory lighting is mercury free. So when it's time to recycle that, it isn't considered a hazardous material. So it does have many benefits environmentally over compact fluorescents, for example. And LED lights can be safely recycled, but the requirements for doing that depend on your local recycling facilities, and you should check with them as to what their requirements are. So here's a chart that gives you some of the specifics in terms of a comparison between LEDs and halogen technologies. So we've got 10-year life expectancy for the LED operatory lights compared to only 3,000 hours or 1 year of life expected from a halogen bulb. That's a gigantic difference. And look at the energy consumed. So less than 35 watts of energy consumed by the LEDs versus 150 watts consumed by the halogen. And like I mentioned on the previous screen, a low temperature with the LEDs, it's the cooler temperatures versus the halogens, which are much hotter and brighter. No replacement bulbs for 10 years. That ought to be music to a dentist's ears. And what's the bottom line impact of that? The savings can be between $500 and $1,000 over 10 years. So when you start to think about the cost of perhaps upgrading to an LED operatory light, it's really important to also consider the cost of those bulbs and what you're not going to need to replace with an LED operatory light versus the cost of replacing those halogens over 10 years. Your response time is much quicker with LEDs than it is with halogens. The LED operatory lights are much more sturdy, if you will. They'll withstand shocks and vibration. And the one from Dentalese, which is actually pictured here, has really got some other great advantages from an assistance point of view, in that it's extremely easy to clean because that surface, the lighting surface, is flat. And so when it comes to turning that room around, it's just a really quick turnaround to wipe that down and move on to the next patient. Finally, no UV radiation is emitted from LEDs versus 90% of the energy that is emitted from a halogen bulb is actually ultraviolet radiation, which is not good for our environment. So moving on to pollution prevention. As I mentioned when we first started talking about the waste in dental offices, the most important pollution prevention step and piece of technology that you can integrate is an amalgam separator. I recently did a presentation to a dental study group in a very high-end neighborhood here in California, and my expectation was that most of the doctors in the room would not be still placing amalgam fillings, but would rather be using composites or porcelains or other tooth-colored options. And my assumption was that most of them, if not all of them, would be using an amalgam separator. However, I was shocked to find out that because virtually every doctor in the room said that he or she no longer placed amalgam fillings, only about half of the dentists present believed that they actually needed a separator. And this just isn't true. Whether you place these amalgam fillings or simply remove them when they've become degraded and need to be replaced, you absolutely need one of these systems. They only cost you can get them for as low as $500. Some of the expensive ones are $800 or $900, which is about the cost of the average crown that we're billing out. So install an amalgam separator. Some of them are even so simple you can install them yourself, attached right to the vacuum system, or call a plumber or your dental supply rep. And it's the most important way for us to keep amalgam containing material, which is 50% mercury, to keep that material out of our local wastewater treatment facilities so that dental offices can stop being the #1 contributor of mercury-containing material to our local wastewater treatment facilities. Waterless vacuum systems. So what you're looking at here is actually a picture of the Midmark waterless vacuum system. It's a really great system. As I mentioned, the waterless vacuum systems can save between 350 and 500 gallons of water every single day. And this is a new piece of technology and high technology which has only come on the market in the last few years. The Midmark system is particularly great because it also has what we call an on-demand feature, which means that if you, doctor, are in the office alone on a Friday or something like that, the system is going to draw less power and produce less suction than if you're in there, your associate's also there that day, and you've got 2 hygienists practicing. So similarly, you go out to lunch, that system is going to power down and not leave itself using as much energy as a regular system would use. So by using a waterless vacuum system, you're not only going to save water, but you're going to have a lower energy consumption, which will in turn reduce the energy costs to the practice. And these eco-friendly on-demand features are a great option that are available. So moving to digital dentistry and how it is high-tech and green. The digital office of the present and of the future is going to use digital imaging. It's going to use digital charting and impression and billing. So all kinds, instead of creating paper statements, for example, we're going to be able to do electronic billing, electronic insurance submissions, digital impressions. Think about digital impressions. When we take an impression, most dentists are using, first of all, a disposable impression tray. And they're using, obviously, disposable impression taking material. There's a significant cost with the impression material, and there's an environmental cost to it. So that impression material and the tray get thrown out into the landfill. And instead, by using digital impressions, we eliminate all of that waste. We also eliminate all of that goo. And I don't know about you, but my husband, who's an amazing dentist who's been practicing over 30 years, tells me that the thing that patients tell him they hated the most was taking impressions using traditional systems. Whereas using digital impressions avoids all of that discomfort for patients and allows you to be sure you're getting exactly the impression you need, doctors, in order to make the best restoration possible, the best mouth guard possible, the best system possible. So then digital marketing and communications. So by communicating with your patients digitally using text messaging, using social media, using other high-tech options for patient communications, we also lower the carbon footprint of our office. We reduce our waste. So instead of sending out a postcard to neighboring zip codes when you are trying to do marketing, or to remind your patients it's time to come in to your office for their twice or thrice yearly dental cleanings, you can use digital media, which gets out your message immediately, saves printing costs, saves paper, saves postage. And great efficiencies and health benefits to your office, again, by doing things, by improving the air quality in your office because you don't have any toxic x-ray development chemicals being used to develop your x-rays. So what are some of the green benefits of creating in-office restoration? So these are things like the Shine E4D and the Sirona CEREC machine. There are also a couple of other systems that are coming out on the market. CareStream Kodak is coming out with its own new in-office restoration machine. There are a number of options that are available now in Europe that will soon be available here in North America. But what in-office restorations facilitate us being able to do is, first of all, gets rid of that impression material and all of the waste associated with that. It also eliminates the temporary restoration waste. So we know we have material costs there, and we have waste that's associated with creating temporaries. But perhaps most important is it lowers the footprint, the carbon footprint of the office and the patient, because if that patient only has to come to your office once to get a restoration, to have your prep done and to seat the final restoration, the carbon footprint of that patient is lowered because that patient doesn't have to transport himself or herself to your office twice for that procedure, but just once. Also, you don't have to send your restoration out to your lab and then have it sent back or have it picked up by your lab and then driven back. So again, the carbon footprint of the office is improved by having in-office restorations fabricated right on site. It also helps to improve staff efficiencies and productivities. So your assistants, instead of having to, make a temporary and maybe they don't get it right exactly the first time and then you have to come in and check it and then they have to remake the temp, or you get it, that temp made just right and then the patient bites down and the occlusion isn't perfect and they crack the temp. Then you got to start all over. Staff efficiencies from these CAD/CAM systems really can't be overrated. And that is money in your pocket, doctor, because when you're able to be in that chair generating between $400 and $700 an hour in productive time, your staff is able to be most supportive of you and your treatment recommendations. And that results in improved productivity for the office. So green dentistry definitely boosts the bottom line. When my husband and I first started the Eco-Dentistry Association back in 2008, we had a question about whether or not being a green office and incorporating green innovations cost more or cost less. Because when my husband and I built our office back in 2003, there were increased costs associated with being a green office. But we knew that there had been innovations that had happened, making, for example, things like paints containing no volatile organic compounds much more readily available. And guess what? This independent company that did an analysis of dental office innovations for green dentistry determined that the average dental office can improve its bottom line by as much as $50,000 a year. And there's a chart on my next slide that I'm going to share with you. But these savings come from everything from lower supply and energy costs, from lower marketing costs by using digital technology, greater efficiencies and therefore greater chair time productivity, improved use of our staff skills and efficiencies, and helping us to have a steady flow of wellness-based patients who are looking for dentists that share their values, and also providing opportunities for dentists to increase their income streams by offering things in their office like CoQ10 and vitamin C that have been proven to provide benefits to improving gum health, and by offering other things like integrative services such as providing a Clifford reactivity test that can, through using a blood test, can tell you the biocompatibility of your patient's particular biosystem to over 6,000 different dental materials. So here's that chart I was mentioning about specific bottom line benefits that are available by being a high-tech and green dental practice. Everything from reusable infection control processes, like instead of you wearing a disposable gown, having reusable lab coats that are washed either on-site in an energy-efficient machine or are sent out to a medical laundry. Steam sterilization, so getting rid of that old chemiclade. You can save $825 a year just doing that, because that's what those chemicals are costing every year. Tooth-colored restoration, so by switching to things like composite resins that are BPA-free and by using porcelains and other tooth-colored restorative materials. These materials require greater skill level, and because they require greater skill level, they can command a higher price. And so what this independent consulting firm told us is that an average dental practice, by using tooth-colored restorations, can improve the bottom line by as much as $37,000 every year. That's a gigantic amount, and one I think all of us should take a serious look at. Digital imaging and patient charting, even considering the cost of buying all of the computers necessary to run digital imaging and digital patient charting, by converting completely to a digital office, the cost savings are $8,769 a year. And reaching that green dentistry patient, an unlimited improvement to your bottom line. So green dentistry is really wellness-based dentistry. It helps to put dentistry on the forefront of preventive health. I mean, really, when you think about it, why did we all go into dentistry? We went in it because we wanted to care about people and provide a good health care experience for them and to do what we could. So this, by being a green dental office, you're on the leading edge of preventative health. And we know that there is a systemic connection between our mouths and our bodies. So our healthy mouth equals a healthy person. So an ability to have a conversation with our patients about the importance of good oral health to overall health is a great market differentiator. We have available to us a number of early detection and less invasive treatment options. So what I mean by early detection are things like Diagnodent, which can sense caries with better than the naked eye, certainly. Things like oral cancer screening using high-tech innovations like the Velscope and others. And also by doing things like oral DNA, by actually testing our patients to find out what bacteria they have present in their mouth and whether or not this is a bacteria which is of concern or one which is not going to create substantial problems with their gums. So using technology in order to find out information that is traditionally not inquired in dentistry. I mean, when you go to a medical doctor, one of the first things he or she will do is take blood or do a urine sample. But in dentistry, we just don't think to do that. And it's really time that we do so, because by doing those kinds of early detection and using technology to help us get information about what's really going on in our patient's mouth, we can be at the forefront of preventative health. So these wellness lifestyle patients, there are about 100 million consumers in America that consider themselves to be part of this market. They are a very powerful consumer base that is valuing preventive care. They would rather, come to see their dentist to get healthy and stay healthy than they would go spend money on a dinner out at a restaurant. It should be music to your ears that 60% of these wellness lifestyle patients are women, because we know that women are the ones in the family who generally make the health care decisions for the family. They're the ones that are going to make those appointments for their husbands and for their families, the dental appointments. And these patients are generally highly educated and very communicative. So they like to share on things like social networks. And examples are Gen Xers, baby boomers, eco-moms. So there's some statistics now that about 50% of all women with children under 18 self-identify as eco-moms. So people that are reading the labels on everything that goes in and on their children. These are the kinds of patients you want to attract and be able to keep. And what is the way that you can reach them? You have to reach them where they are. And where your patients are is online. I mean, Facebook has 1 billion people online right now. Twitter is growing just by leaps and bounds, equally for business as it is for regular people. Pinterest is a visual media social media site that has about 80% of its users are women. So wouldn't it be cool if your dental office were to have a Pinterest account, and on that you were to post great photographs of, a new piece of equipment that you just got, or a staff lunch or birthday celebration that you had. Social media is the way to reach these patients, to reach new patients, existing patients. It's where your patients are, and it's certainly where you and your dental office should be. This is the most important high technology advancement for dentists, I think, ever, because it allows us to showcase our individual practice personalities in a very unique way, and to reach in a cost-effective way and a paper-free way a very wide market of our customers and our potential customers. So this is just a great image that I've included here. The top one is the inauguration of the Pope in 2005, and then the inauguration of the Pope just 8 years later. So you see in the top image, there's just a smattering of cell phones and smartphones, but on the bottom one, just 8 years later, it's a veritable sea of cell phones. Why is this? Well, the market has burgeoned. Right now on our planet, more people have a cell phone, about 5 billion of them have a cell phone, than have a toothbrush. That's shocking. And it's not going to change. 2 billion of the cell phones on the planet are already smartphones, which means they're already capable of accessing the internet. The predictions are within just 5 years, 5 billion, so virtually all of the cell phones, 7 billion people on the planet will have a cell phone, and 5 billion of those will be internet connected. So this is where our patients are. This is where digital communications facilitates your opportunity to be a leading-edge, high-tech dental office that communicates to your patients that you are where they are. You're using the same technologies that they're using every day and every minute in their lives. They're sharing that what they ate at dinner with their friends. They're communicating with their kids and with their friends via text messages. Their dental office should be doing that. And you can send them an e-newsletter that doesn't have to be printed. It doesn't have to, you don't have to pay for postage. You don't have to worry whether there's a typo. You just create it in your office, press a button. It's waste-free, and it gets out your message totally quickly. So here's our Eco-Dentistry Association website. I hope each and every one of you has a website. Very important and critical tool for helping to reach particularly new patients. Your website should reflect your practice branding, and it should very clearly have your phone number where they can call you. It should very clearly have a way to reach you and send you an email for an appointment request. Every dental office should have a website. If you don't have that piece of technology, you are missing the high-tech revolution. And whether you like it or not, patients are going to assume that your dentistry is also in the dark ages because your web presence is in the dark ages. So I invite you to really be part of dentistry's green future, of dentistry's high-tech and digital future, and to be part of our Eco-Dentistry Association community. We provide a series of things. We're essentially an educational organization. We also offer standards through our Green Dental Office certification program, our Green Doc program. It's going to give you everything you need in order to be a certified office. We have 180 different initiatives that your dental office can integrate, and you get points based similarly like the LEED program for buildings, leadership in energy and environmental design. You don't have to do everything in order to be a certified practice, and there are some things that are required, but there are things that you would expect, like have an amalgam separator, like using digital imaging, like using digital charting. So lots of opportunities to be part of the Eco-Dentistry Association community, receive free CE like this webinar, as well as staying in touch with us and being part of dentistry's green future. We have a great blog that we post in every week that has content that you can share from your own Facebook pages. Check out our Facebook page. Again, we have great images and content that you can share showing that you're part of this green future. And if you don't have a Twitter page for yourself, I really encourage you to set one up. It won't take long, and you probably have a Gen X staff member on your team who would be more than happy to help you to set up your Twitter page and help you to start communicating with your patients where they are, which is online. So thank you for being part of dentistry's green future and listening to this webinar, and I hope to meet each and every one of you at some point in the future and welcome you as members of our organization.